when capability becomes permission. Over the next few years, more of your work will be decided by checkboxes, approval queues, notifications, and request access buttons. The cost shows up as meetings to justify actions you already know how to do, and dashboards that record compliance instead of outcomes. As systems scale across longer time horizons, capability is gradually replaced by authorization. The question shifts from, can you do it, to are you allowed to do it, because permissioning becomes the cheapest way to manage tail risk at scale. Power becomes easiest to see at the boundary, the moment an action touches a gate. A gate can be a role, a policy, a token, a checklist, an audit log, a manager's sign-off, or a silent rule encoded in software. Each gate is an explicit constraint. It narrows the set of actions that can be taken, and it raises the cost of the actions that remain. In the short term, gates are often installed for good, concrete reasons. Someone misused a tool, something sensitive leaked, a mistake was expensive. The organization learns that it cannot afford unconstrained action, so it introduces a control. The incentive is clear. The people accountable for failures are rewarded for reducing visible incidents and punished for allowing preventable errors. Permissioning is legible, competence is harder to measure. But gates do not arrive alone. They create feedback loops. When approvals become the path, people optimize for approvals. They learn which words satisfy the form, which metrics calm the reviewer, which meeting produces the needed signature. The system then proves that gates are necessary, because what it now sees is not capability, but permission-seeking behavior. A quiet loop forms. More gates create more permission-seeking, which produces more apparent need for gates. Over the mid-horizon, the trade-off becomes painful and specific. Reducing failure frequency versus reducing throughput. Fewer unapproved actions means fewer catastrophic errors, but also slower iteration, more handoffs, more coordination overhead, and more time spent translating reality into forms. The organization pays this cost in a disguised currency. Longer queues, more status updates, and more work that exists primarily to be reviewable. A second-order effect follows. When action requires authorization, ownership migrates upward. Not because leaders are wiser, but because the system must choose a locus of responsibility, and it chooses the place where signatures concentrate. Meanwhile, the people closest to the work are trained to treat their own judgment as provisional until validated. Capability still exists, but it becomes less exercised. Atrophy is not a moral failure. It is an adaptive response to constraint. Across longer horizons, permissioning becomes infrastructure. The original incident that justified a gate is forgotten. The gate remains because removing it creates uncertainty. No one wants to be the person who deleted a control and then faced the rare high-impact failure. This is a governance asymmetry. The benefits of freedom are diffuse and delayed, while the blame for failure is immediate and personal. So controls accrete. Uncertainty matters here. Not every gate is unnecessary, and not every gate is sufficient. Systems face real tail risks: fraud, safety hazards, privacy loss, cascading outages, and reputational damage. The honest problem is that the future is not fully knowable, and governance is an attempt to bound damage under uncertainty. A failure mode is not having constraints. It is forgetting that constraints are choices, and that choices should be revisited as context changes. Power, in this sense, is not merely who shouts loudest. It is who can change the default, who can add a gate, who can remove one, who can interpret an exception, who can grant temporary access, who can define what compliance means in the dashboard. When capability becomes permission, responsibility shifts in subtle ways. People start to treat permission as legitimacy. If the form was approved, the action must be acceptable. If the form was denied, the action must be suspect. Attention follows the gates. What is measured becomes what is defended, and what is defended becomes what is repeated. Governance is part of the system, not outside it. A permission model encodes values: which harms are feared, which delays are tolerated, which groups are trusted by default, and which must continually reprove themselves. The human consequence is not only frustration, it is identity formation. Over time, a person can be shaped into a requester rather than an agent, not by persuasion, but by repeated interaction with a constrained interface. This is why the core question, who decides what you are allowed to do, cannot be reduced to a single villain or a single policy. The decision is distributed across incentives, audit trails, and the invisible logic of tools. Power accumulates where exceptions are granted, and their defaults are set. A single act of reflection. Choose one routine action in your week that now requires an approval, a ticket, or a permission request, and name the hidden assumption it carries about trust. Who is trusted by default, who is reviewed, and what risk the system is optimizing against across your chosen time horizon. We do not escape constraints. We inherit them, revise them, or pretend they are neutral. So humility under uncertainty begins by noticing who holds the keys.